Hi everyone. Today I want to share some of the learnings I had from the past 3 practice matches for Loki Cup. I will also briefly talk about one of the crucial change from July 1st patch that we just had, and also on the respawn mechanic that may change or it can be, further abused otherwise. Let's start by looking at the limits of the Horn or Valkyrie. This section will show you how long a single person can hold on to the Valkyrie and live through the backlash damage of 10% every 5 seconds after the 60 seconds immunity. This is because of the healings allowed on the Valkyrie, and I will use the practice match 2 versus Bobacats as an example in this section. Here at 10:54 game time, we can see that Linsanity from Bobacats has obtained the Horn, which he held throughout the remainder of the match, as we will start seeing. We see at the 9:54 mark that he has arrived at the altar and used it at 9:45. We will assume he walked to the altar because we will see that he has teleported later on at the 9-minute mark. We then see that he used another altar at 8:15 mark. Since it was 90 seconds after he used the last altar, and about 7 seconds or so of channeling to use the altar, there should at least be 15 to 20 seconds of backlash damage, or about 30% minimum. Then we see a similar gap at 6:45 mark for the next altar. Same thing here, we would also expect a similar 30% damage to the Valkyrie's HP. Here we see the push up to the altar and Linsanity actually teleporting at around the 6-minute mark. From this, we can actually conclude that the cooldown of the teleport skill is at most 180 seconds or 3 minutes. We then see the altar being used at the 5:25 mark. This was a shorter gap for backlash, but we would still expect at least 10% damage to the Valkyrie. Since they were camping at the same altar, the next usage is about 90 seconds later at the 3:50 mark. Same as before, you would expect at least 30% backlash damage done to the Valkyrie. Then, we see that he teleported at the 2:40 mark. This is the point where our guild knew that we messed up the cooldown timers, and the Loki Cup cooldowns for teleport are very different than from the Vigrid Avenge. We see the next Horn usage at 2:32, so that still opens up at least 10% damage to the Valkyrie. The next use of the altar is at the 55-second mark. This is another 30% damage at least to the Valkyrie. Adding up the minimum damage expected on the Valkyrie from before, you will notice that this number is much bigger than 100%, or that means the Valkyrie should already be long dead at this point. But if you were to look at the point of view from our guild member Mugo, who managed to get close to the Valkyrie at the 50-second mark, the Valkyrie HP is actually at 40%. This means that over the course since the 8:15-minute mark where the first backlash damage started, the Valkyrie has actually healed about 80% of its HP, or about 10% HP per minute. Next, as you've watched me feed a kill because of the dumb respawn mechanics, you will see that he has again teleported at around the 0:32 mark. We can deduce that the cooldown of the teleport skill is about 120 seconds or 2 minutes now. Let's now talk about the change or fix in the most recent July 1 patch. They have reduced the movement speed cap from 300% before to now 200% only. That is a very significant change, because that means running between objectives or points in the map will take much longer now. For example, you can see from the teleport at 6 minutes that it took our guild 10 seconds to start moving and about 20 seconds to reach to the other altar. This 20-second movement will now be longer and could take up to 30 seconds now. For other objectives, especially undead spirits, this means that it will take much longer for 1 to 2 persons to walk to every spawn point. The time taken to move between objectives and the altar of Valkyrie will also be extended now. With that note, let's revisit the objective timers. It is good to know that the all-in spawn timers are listed on the screen. With this knowledge and movement speed nerf, You should now assign the appropriate resources outside of the Valkryie for each of the objective timers. Before I end the video, I also want to show you the poor respawn mechanic currently in the game mode. When a character respawns or is resurrected by an ally, there is a 5-second period that the character is unable to use skill or attack. However, here comes the poor design. The invulnerability period, where you're not immune to CC, is only 3 seconds. So you can see how getting res in a sea of enemy means you will continuously feed unless you are able to walk out and escape enemies. Hopefully the developers can see this poor design and address this. That is all for my video today. If you like my content, feel free to give it a like, or if you are interested in specific topics or have questions, feel free to ask me down below in the comments section. See you next time.